Hello, and welcome to our first episode in a series of data science topics we'll be rolling out on Wodwo's YouTube and LinkedIn channels. My name is Alexandra, and I'll be the moderator. I'm excited to kick us off with data scientist expert from Dataline, Joe Godfrey. Dataline is Wodwo's parent company and has been a premier provider of consumer marketing information for over 20 years. Joe, welcome. Tell us about what you do at Dataline.
Thank you. Well, I'm the chief data scientist. I've been with the company for over 15 years and have been involved in building customer targeting models and other kinds of analytic products throughout those years.
So Joe, we're here today to talk about why modeling, customer modeling to be specific. So why are we looking at this, and maybe start with what is it?
Well, I always like to start with everyone's immediate experience, particularly in direct marketing. Folks are used to doing selects, for example. I want my customers have a certain age, a certain gender, a certain kind of products that they're buying, and it's called a select. And you'll give 4 or 5 attributes, and then you just simply select from the database that way. Well, that's actually a kind of model. It's a very simple model where all the attributes have a basic equal weighting. What we do in the analytics world is we're able to expand that into a much larger profile of the customer and look more in detail, more in depth, look at behaviors, not just their characteristics, and then be able to create a model, a weighted scheme now where you can take those attributes and weight them. So some are more important than others. Age might be more important than gender for a given product, and you can capture that where a straight select can't do that. And so customer modeling is fundamentally about understanding your customer. Who are they? Taking advantage of the rich information that's available on those customers to create a model, basically, to say, hey, this is what the customer looks like in full richness of the information available. And now how can I use that information to go and look for more customers, or to add or give new products, present new products to existing customers, and so forth. It just enriches the information space that's available to the market.
And how does it technically work? So lifting up the hood here, how can we get these new target universes?
Well, fundamentally, there's two dimensions to this. This is your internal data that you have on customers. You may have done surveys and stuff like that, in which case you can do your own internal market research. But there are a number of companies that have large databases on folks that capture attributes, up to thousands of attributes on people, their demographics, but more importantly, their behavior. Because in marketing, we're ultimately interested in behavior, not so much who you are, but what you do and what you care about. So what we do in modeling is we try to get that kind of information on individuals. What are they buying, when they're buying, how much they're spending, what are their interests, and so forth. And then align that with and again, I'm coming from my experience, we'll call them a client. The client has customers, so our client has customers. We work with our clients to understand their customers so that they can then prospect to new customers and or upsell, do things with existing customers, et cetera. So they reactivate old customers and so forth. So the idea, though, is that we're going to take this large feature space of people, again, their demographics and their behavior, and we're very much focused on that behavior, and then build statistical models that allow us to weight all those attributes and then identify people in the market that are not necessarily the current folks that you're looking at to then send your marketing messages to.
Okay, so you mentioned there are multiple companies that have thousands of people or data points to look at, to consider. So as a marketer, how do I know which company to choose? And of course, we're talking about Wodwo, but tell me a little bit about how would I make that decision, and how many data points should a company have?
Well, you really want to see hundreds to thousands of data points that are relevant to you. And it might seem like 1,000 is a lot, but actually it's actually quite thin. You need a lot of attributes to get down to the specificity of your customer. Now, if you're in a very niche market, you may be able to get away with a much smaller database because the attributes in your niche market are relatively few, but there's not going to be a lot of business opportunity for that marketing company. And so you're going to need a marketing company, because they need to be in business too, that's going to have a larger database so that they can support their business with multiple different kinds of clients. So you are looking for thousands of attributes potentially, although your model, the actual statistical model that you end up working with, may only have a few hundred or even less than 100. So it's not like you're necessarily going to use all those attributes, but you need that world, that ocean of attributes, in order to find those key attributes that are going to be specific to your customers. So that's one thing you're looking for. The other thing you're looking for is the sourcing for those companies. Are they getting people that are active in the marketplace now? So is it a transactional database? Is it focused on consumer behavior so that you have those behavior characteristics to work with? You're of course interested in demographic information, particularly age. That's very important, gender and so forth, the basic characteristics, because so many products are geared to those kinds of segments. So you want your database to have that kind of information. So you're interested in the size of the database, its comprehensiveness. Okay. How many consumers? Say there's roughly 240 million, 250 million consumers. There's more people than that in the country. There's 300 million, but a lot of those are kids or folks that are not active in the marketplace. So it's not necessarily that you want to see 300 million. That may be overstating it, right? Mm-hmm. But somewhere in the 200 to 250 million range is a realistic number for the active consumer market space. So you're looking for that. And then you're looking, so that's sort of the population, right? But then you're also looking for that horizontal aspect, all the attributes that you have on these individuals, which will then be sourced from any number of sources. You start with the census, for example. That's a great source for demographic, geographic type information. But then you're also interested in consumer information, where you're actually looking at the kinds of transactions and products and services that these individuals are buying.
Okay, so going back to the technology, can we target different audiences simultaneously?
Yes, and there are a number of technologies and approaches to doing this. I think just to enter into the question is to think of, I'm going to talk about decision trees or classification trees, but use a metaphor that's probably familiar to most. Everyone knows they have a family tree, right? Mm-hmm. And in your family tree, there are all kinds of different individuals, right? And they're on different branches. Well, we do basically the same technique to capture different market segments, right? So each member of your family is like a market segment. You know, cousin Jim has one set of interests, sister Sue has a different set of interests, and so on. And you want to capture that. And they're all on the same tree. So what we do is we build a decision tree, and it starts with, say, your demographic information. So there'll be some older folks and some younger folks. There'll be males and females and so on. And you start creating these groups, and the decision tree then basically aggregates those into a branch. And then you're looking for customers that you have that look like that group, or actually the decision tree is going to find those groups for you. And then the decision tree can then say, okay, now I'm going to take my decision tree and I'm going to apply it to the general database. And I'm going to say, this branch, and I look for everybody in the database that looks like that, and they get a score. And then there's another branch, and you look for everybody in the database that looks like that, and they get a score. And at the end of the day, there's just one score, but it's come from different branches in the tree. And you're going to send out one marketing campaign. That's the other aspect of this. And your tree will have been designed based on those branches that you're going after, and they'll all be available to you in that single score. And because it's a tree, you don't have to worry about, they got a score of 100%, right? Well, which branch is it going to be? It doesn't matter. If they scored 100% off of this branch, they're a good customer. They'll be in that branch. Catalog is a great way to think of this, right? You're going to try to sell through a catalog. Catalog has many products, apparel, kitchenwares, furniture, and so forth, right? And you're just sending out the catalog. Well, the catalog is everybody in a sense, but it's going to attract certain groups, and the decision tree will have each of those groups in the tree, and anybody that buys furniture, apparel, etc., can get a high score and will then be represented in the final output.
Okay, so I know Wodwo is AI powered. How does AI tie into this modeling?
Well, let me first start with the word AI, artificial intelligence, because that's the word that everybody's hearing these days. But there are other similar words, and they don't all mean exactly the same thing. I'm kind of a technical person, so I worry about the meanings, right? So there's machine learning and artificial intelligence and so on. So I really like to just think of it in terms of we're taking advantage of the incredible power in modern computers to enhance our human capabilities. I don't see it as an alternative to our capabilities, but the enhancement. Just going back to the mentioned earlier about doing a simple select as a model, the human being can handle, these are old statistics going back almost 100, back to the invention of the telephone. People can handle, anywhere from 7 to 12 sort of numbers in their head, 7 to 12 characteristics. That's fairly typical of what any of us, myself included, can hold in your head. Being a data scientist doesn't mean I can handle all these high dimensions and whatnot in my head. No, 5, 7, 10. After that, I start to get overwhelmed. I deal with thousands of attributes every day. I can maybe handle 100 because I do it every day. Most folks 10, 20, and you start to get overwhelmed. It starts to get your eyes blur, right? That's where the machine comes in. Its eyes don't get blurry. It can take in all of those dimensions and do the trade-offs, just like you or I would do. And as a data scientist, one of my jobs is to make sure the machine is, in a sense, being reasonable, that it's doing those kinds of trade-offs the same way that you or I would. And we design or choose both the algorithm to reflect that. So different algorithms will work differently and are differently appropriate depending on the kind of marketing campaign we're doing. So you're looking for a statistical package that will enable one to do that. So you create this model now over thousands of attributes, and the machine is able to do that. And it's simply amplifying. It's like an amplifier on your individual abilities to look at into people, now your prospects, and see the nuances, create those pockets so that you have a sufficient market to meet your business needs.
So from a cost standpoint, as a marketer looking to get more AI into my modeling or looking at hiring a team of data scientists, how do I make this decision between a platform like Wodwo and going out and finding my own data scientist?
Well, it's what business are you in? Are you in the business of analytics and building models? Or is it that you just need 1 or 2 models to serve your business? There's a difference. If you're going to be in the business of modeling, you need to be building hundreds of models, not 1 or 2. So do you see your business as needing to have all these hundreds of models, and models are changing every day, and you need analytics, and you need people that can evaluate data, get data sources. You have to have these data sources that we're talking about for all this behavioral information and information that's not native to your customers, because that becomes the self-fulfilling prophecy. You just look at your customers, and all you can then is sell to your customers, and then you might be able to find your best customers within your customers, and stuff like that you may be able to do with a handful of data scientists just by working your own data. But if you want to prospect beyond your existing customer base, look for new customers or reactivate old customers so you don't have current data on them, things like that, you're going to need to basically either invest in becoming a data science shop and then having lots of data scientists, the computer infrastructure that's required, the experience. It also takes time. I've been doing this 15 years. The first few years were a little rough. You have to learn. And that's going to be true with anyone that you hire. It takes time to come up to speed, to develop a sense of how the marketing works and stuff you may have learned about statistics in school, how that translates into the real practice of direct marketing. There's a bit of a learning curve there. So those are all things that I would be considering if I was a company deciding to say, hey, I'm going to bring data science in-house. Scale is a big issue. How many models am I going to be building? What kind of experience do I need? What kind of investment in infrastructure do I need? If what I need is a handful of models, it's not that you're going to have a model like you build it one day and then it's going to last you for years. You may be rebuilding this model month after month after month, but it's one model. For that, I would look to outsource it to a company that is capable of doing these kinds of things, that has the data sources, that will work with me to make sure that my model is satisfactory and so forth.
So how do I know as a marketer, or maybe it's the size of my company, if I'm a good candidate to start getting into customer modeling and scale up?
If you need to grow, you're a good candidate, right? You need to find new customers somehow. So, you have all your different channels that you work with. Okay, you're going to be doing various kinds of advertising. Well, where's the best place to advertise? Well, one of the things you need to then is profile your existing customers. Are they online buyers? Are they perhaps more easily reached by the old-fashioned way, direct mail? Is it television? Is it telemarketing? So on. You need that kind of information. Again, and also the customers that you have, you got to be careful of is like, well, if I want new kinds of customers, I don't want to necessarily be limited to just the profile I see. How can I work to expand that profile? But in fairness, you're going to have to start with the customers you've got. If you want to expand that, you're going to have to make certain guesses as to, hey, I think I want to go after a younger market, so I'm going to need to bias my messaging towards that and see if I can bring those folks in. And then it's kind of a snowball. You get some of those folks in and you build and you grow it out. So you're going to need to identify what your growth goals are. Mm-hmm. If you're going to grow the customer base, that means you need to reach folks that you're not currently reaching. The message has to get out to them. A modeling strategy is a way to do that. You take your existing customers and you find out what kind of channels do they listen to, for example. This is just profiling your customer. What kind of channels are they listening to, so that you can then say, okay, it looks like online is where most of my customers are coming from, or where they do most of their buying. Then that's the channel I want to focus on. They may be coming through direct mail, in which case that's the channel you want to focus on. Or of course, you may want a portfolio in this day and age of channels.
Joe, this has been an insightful conversation. Thank you. Before I let you go, my last question is, in summary, why should marketers adopt customer modeling in their strategy?
The two fundamental reasons is for scale, to grow your customers, and a business that isn't growing is dying. So you've got to be focused on growth and acquiring new customers and staying with it, if you will. The other is to amplify your capabilities. You have insights about your customers, but how can the wealth of data that exists now in the marketplace, how can I take advantage of that data to amplify my understanding of customers to grow my business?
And why should I choose Wodwo?
Well, Wodwo, for two reasons. One is that it's backed by one of these large sources of consumer data, the 240 million consumers in the marketplace with recent transactions, rich demographic data, and so forth. So you've got that depth of possibility of understanding your customers. So you've got the data, and it begins with the data. You have to have a solid source of data. The second thing is that Wodwo, the platform, is built on our years of experience building statistical models, and frankly, being somewhat skeptical of automating the process. So we worked very hard to create a statistical model that tests well, that validates well against our own internal custom modeling. So that would be one of the reasons I would recommend Wodwo, is that it is a state-of-the-art, validated against our internal practice statistical modeling tool. And just to be candid, Dataline is using the technology of Wodwo now internally as well.
Well, Joe, thank you so much. Thank you all for watching. You can follow this new series on Wodwo's YouTube or LinkedIn channels. So head over and subscribe, follow us. We'll see you on the next episode of Wodwo Dives into Data Science with Joe Godfrey.
Thank you.